So, I see a common theme within the spiritual and new age community, which is this: if something is not happening for you, or you continue to face disappointment in whatever it is that you're trying to achieve, then that thing is not for you. This is not accurate, and it is quite literally a limiting belief. Unfortunately, though, it's all too common, and you will hear this being said a lot throughout your spiritual awakening process. You may even get to a point where you believe it and accept that it's just the way that it is. But today, I wanted to discuss this with you and give you a few examples that actually help illustrate why this way of thinking isn't always in our best interests, and why, if your heart is really set on something, you should not give up on it. So, persistence matters when it comes to getting what you want. If your energy is focused in one direction and you're moving towards something energetically, you will manifest that thing. Because if we want something badly enough, it automatically removes all doubt from our mind. You're so determined to have that thing that nothing is going to stop you from getting it, not even pushback, not even rejection, not even 100 perceived failures. This is the kind of mentality that will get you what you want, and it will manifest. Now, granted, there is another way of manifesting, which is to focus on finding peace in the moment, being happy with what you have, having your energy open to receiving, and thereby allowing the things that are an energetic match to you to flow effortlessly into your life. Both of these methods work. However, the second option would have you reasoning that if I'm not a vibrational match to this thing, then clearly it wasn't meant for me. If I were a vibrational match to it, it will happen for me because I'm in the state of allowing. That's the kind of reasoning that we have when we have the belief system of option B, which is to essentially just go with the flow. So while you can manifest really wonderful things this way, and in some ways it's actually an easier way to live, it would also mean that if you encountered any sort of obstacle or any sort of roadblock to getting what you want, you might actually be inclined to look at these roadblocks as the universe's way of letting you know that that thing is not for you. So we've all heard the expression, rejection is God's protection. And while you might apply that to certain relationships in your life, let's look at that phrase in another context. Let's say you wanted a job in a particular field, but all of the jobs in that field that you were applying to were rejecting you. You received dozens of rejection emails. Using manifesting method A, or persistence, you continue to apply until you finally get a yes. So now you have your dream job. But using manifesting method B, you get 5 or so rejections, and you would say, clearly this is not for me, clearly it isn't meant to be, rejection is God's protection, this is simply the universe's way of nudging me in a different direction. So in one scenario, you have your dream job, and in the other scenario, you do not. So you've come to a fork in the road, and you were deciding your future in that moment with the decision to give up or to keep going. So imagine how different those two life paths would be. As you can see, just because something doesn't flow effortlessly into your life, it doesn't mean that it isn't meant to be in your life. But you can assign that meaning to it if you choose. And there's actually nothing wrong with that, with living your life that way, if that's what makes you happy. But to say that something is or isn't for someone is not up to anyone to decide other than oneself. Which leads me to my next point, and I'm going to give an example of one situation where these beliefs are commonly imposed on another person, and that's tarot. I've heard tarot readings before say exactly what I've mentioned above, that if you try something and it's not working out for you, then it's not for you. It's your sign to try something different. In fact, I actually had a reader tell me, that when I moved to a new city. So at first when I moved here, there were some issues and I had quite a bit of trouble finding a job. So she said that it's because the universe was trying to tell me that I wasn't supposed to be here. So in that moment, I actually considered just turning around and going back home. But the thing is that I really didn't want to. So I decided to stay and make it work regardless of what she said. And then shortly afterwards, I did end up finding a job. So if I had taken the other path and turned around and went back home, I wouldn't be here right now. I would be back home. My life would look completely different. And I've even heard people say some people aren't meant to be wealthy in this lifetime and are destined to be poor to learn a lesson. This kind of toxic belief system is keeping you locked in a cage, becoming complacent and accepting your fate because someone with limiting beliefs told you you weren't meant for anything more. I wanted to give you some examples of some public figures who have notably experienced a great deal of setback before they finally broke through and got what they wanted through sheer persistence. This shows that rejection as God's protection is nothing more than a belief. The first example is Stephen King. Stephen King, everyone knows who Stephen King is. He's one of the most well-known fiction authors in the world, and he's sold hundreds of millions of copies of his works. His novel Carrie, which is one of his most successful, was rejected 30 times before it was eventually published. At one point, he actually threw the manuscript away, pretty much giving up on it before his wife retrieved it and urged him not to give up on his dream. Carrie was eventually published, and as you know, the rest is history. So imagine if Stephen King had said, I guess the universe just doesn't want me to do this, and he gave up then and there. How many amazing movies and books would we be missing out on today? Another example is J.K. Rowling. She was a single mother on welfare at the time of her writing Harry Potter. So obviously writing a novel is no easy feat, and she could have simply not done that and said, I guess this is my life now. I'm obviously not meant to be rich. I'm obviously just supposed to have a life where, I'm on welfare and I'm living paycheck to paycheck and I'm raising my child, and that's it. Maybe in the next lifetime, things will get better for me. Harry Potter then went on to be rejected by 12 publishers, which could have had her even more inclined to accept that this just wasn't for her. And as we know, her life was changed in a big way because Harry Potter was published, and this was all because of her persistence. Another example, Colonel Sanders. At age 62 and with barely any money, Colonel Sanders pitched his now world-famous chicken recipe to over 1,000 restaurants only to be met with nothing but rejection. But he kept trying, and eventually he found success with one restaurant whose sales tripled in a year, largely in part due to the chicken. So now KFC has restaurants all around the world. 1,000 rejections is a lot to handle. Imagine if he had listened to rejection is God's protection. Imagine. Jack Canfield is the author of Chicken Soup for the Soul. It's sort of a self-help book consisting of these inspirational true stories. 144 publishers rejected his pitch for Chicken Soup for the Soul, but eventually he found one that was willing to publish, and now Chicken Soup for the Soul has sold over 500 million copies. Another example, Jerry Seinfeld. Jerry's first time doing stand-up at a comedy club resulted in him being booed off the stage in just 3 minutes. This would be disheartening to say the least, and a weaker-minded person may actually become convinced that this just simply wasn't their career for them. But he continued to press on with stand-up because that was what he loved to do, until eventually he landed a role on a TV series in the 80s. So, of course, there are situations where it might actually be better to give up on something if that particular thing is unhealthy or if it's making you unhappy. But generally, the advice to be persistent comes from us not giving up on something that we really, really want. It will manifest. So don't let anybody, especially not no tarot readers, tell you that something isn't right for you. You need to throw those limiting beliefs out the door and throw away the key. And occasionally, when we give up, it manifests. And that is true. However, persistence is what gets you to that point in the first place. All of that momentum having been built is just waiting to materialize itself into physical form. And giving up is sometimes the final release of resistance that is needed in order for that to happen. But you don't have to give up for it to manifest. Because when you accept beyond a doubt that you will get what you want, it has no choice but to manifest. Burning desire and strong vision will get you what you want. So you really have two choices here. You can just go with the flow and let the cards fall where they may, let the universe bring you what it thinks is best for you, thereby kind of relinquishing all the control that you have over your life. And this is a very legitimate belief system. It's a very legitimate way of living. Lots and lots and lots of people do this. Or the second option is that you take control over your life. You say, I want this thing, and then you don't stop until you get that thing. Is one harder than the other? Yeah, absolutely. But if you want something badly enough, you will do anything to make sure that you get it. But that's the end of the video, so I'm going to finish it off with a couple of quotes that fit nicely into the power of persistence. So there's a really famous quote by Michael Jordan, and it goes like this: I have missed more than 9,000 shots in my career. I have lost almost 300 games. On 26 occasions, I have been entrusted to take the game-winning shot, and I missed. I have failed over and over and over again in my life, and that is why I succeed. Here's another couple of quotes. Persistence can change failure into extraordinary achievement. That one is by Mary Levy. The individual that says it is not possible should move out of the way. Tricia Cunningham. Every great work, every big accomplishment has been brought into manifestation through holding to the vision, and often just before the big achievement comes apparent failure and discouragement. Florence Scovel Shinn. I also just wanted to mention a lot of people ask about, should I let go or should I keep going? Should I let go or should I persist? These things, I just want to make it clear that you can do both, because when you let go, all that really is trusting fully and knowing in your heart that this thing is going to manifest. It's having full faith that it's done. So when people say let go and stop obsessing, they don't mean give up on your desire. They mean that you can stop worrying about it because you know that you've got it in the bag. You know that it's a done deal already. You basically feel like you already have it. In which case you can kind of let go and let your subconscious work its magic. Persisting, on the other hand, is knowing what you want and not taking no for an answer. Eventually, if you keep doing that long enough, you are going to get to a point where you just know that it's done. You just know that you've got this in the bag and you don't have to worry about anything else. And that is when letting go happens by itself, and it happens automatically. So don't get it confused. You absolutely should kind of let go of the obsession and the waiting for it. But where persistence plays into it is, I just know that I'm going to get what I want, and that's it. So hopefully that helps clear it up a little bit.